Our aim is actually to investigate how we can use aspect-oriented programming. I say the title is starting point or kind of for using or improving the design of this aspect-oriented programming. So I need to find out how we can improve the design of it. And what we could find, actually we want to find some notation software like a UML extension to implement this aspect-oriented programming and then find the relationship between design pattern and aspect-oriented programming, because there is a relationship between them. Actually, I need to have some introduction for aspect-oriented programming. This, as you know, is built on object-oriented programming, procedural programming, but the main idea of aspect-oriented programming is dealing with cross-cutting concern. What's cross-cutting concern? So if you have a software, you have a software and you have a lot of development methods, so and you have a requirement and life cycle of development. In object-oriented programming, you have some problem in object-oriented programming that there is inheritance, encapsulations, and some other techniques that each code use others. Cross-cutting concern deal with each concern independently, separated. You can just use it in whole system, not related to other code inside the system. So what's concern? So you have a question how, what's the concern? Actually, as we can see here from these diagrams, we can see that there is a concern, actually a specific requirement, the concern, for example, like logging in the system. So the logging is used in huge system. For example, anyone need to log in the system in anywhere, in any situation, need a login and authentication. So in the real one, in the object-oriented programming, the problem is that they need to call other classes. So why not to call concern? Why don't develop the concern? For example, a specific code, we can call it for logging, for tracking, so it's separate code inside our system. So this is called the concern. We have to type cross-cutting concern and call concern. Actually here, I just mentioned that, for example, if you could manage in the life cycle of software development, manage to find the requirement concern. For example, most of you develop a small system. The small system start from requirement. For example, I go meet the customer, for example, for developing ATM machine system, for example. I use two case studies. One of them is car system management, car crash management system, and ATM. This is a case study used most in software development research. They use these two examples. So I use these two examples. We suppose that, for example, if we have an ATM machine software, I need to find the concern in the requirements. What's the problem here? For example, in the ATM machines, when somebody wants to check his balance, he needs to log in and authenticate. So, in the, for example, all system or all object-oriented programming, they use other techniques like inheritance, encapsulations, to use the same code, but there is a shared, for example, classes between them. But in aspect, no, he suggests that use specific code. This specific code divided in two parts: core concern for the goal of the system, and cross-cutting concern for the subsystem. For example, logging and authentication used in whole system, so in the subsystem. So it's called cross-cutting concern. We can take this code, develop the small code, and use it in all systems. So this is a concern. So they separate. There's using in tracing. It is not interacting code. So this code, just calling it, and you can weave it. So I know that you know the meaning of weaving the code. So I put some code in any place I want, but this only can manage it by creating cross-cutting. Actually, we have a lot of components, a lot of terminology inside the cross-cutting concern. For example, we have a join point, we have an advise and point cut. As you can see here, we have a join point here. Join point is a location we can use, the aspect use it when you execute something. For example, I need to identify the join point inside my program. This join point may be method calls, method return, exception. This is a small code. I define a join point.